No.
No, I think the way you like it. Welcome everyone to the discussion about commercializing research. And it's my pleasure to be here with the panelists. I'm Margarita from Platform 6. It's a startup house in Tampere, Finland with 74 growth companies. But I'm also a PhD student at Tampere University. So in a way, this topic is very close to my heart because it's on the borderline between my academic career and professional. But it's also a very hot topic in Europe because Europe is now thinking how it can get the competitive edge to the rest of the world. And usually the argument, well, there are so many great universities, so much great talent, so shouldn't there be more research-based companies, more innovation coming this way? But at the same time, there is this European paradox. Yes, a strong science base, but weak innovation performance. So let's discuss that in the next 40 minutes. We'll go through different factors and processes, what happens in the labs, how companies are formed, and what can be probably a path that Europe can follow in order to create more innovation-based companies. Let's start with a round of introductions and answering one question, so why there should be actually more companies coming out of the universities and different research organizations. Let's start with you, Marja-Liisa.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I should not have sat next to you because they were addressing me first. But anyway, so my name is Marja-Liisa Meurice, and I am a director of EAT Food, particularly in the region of Nordics, Baltics, and then Central and Eastern Europe. And EAT Food is obviously European Institute of Technology and Innovation, and indeed was actually created in 2008 already with this specific focus is that how can we get those, let's say, results from the labs to and universities towards innovation. And so this is basically the journey that we are still in. EAT Food started in approximately like 2017, 18. And so obviously our focus is particularly on agri-food sector. And likewise, obviously there's a huge transformation that is currently needed in food area. And I'm sure that Maija will also talk about it in her part. But that also means that the research that is currently in food sector and agri-food sector is really in boom. And a lot of things happening. And obviously our role is to make sure that those come out and they become indeed innovations or startups or actually find their way to the market.
Awesome. Paavo?
Hi everyone, my name is Paavo Räisänen. I'm a former entrepreneur and a startup executive and joined the VC side 5 years ago, so the Maki.vc team. Maki.vc is a seed stage VC fund based in Helsinki, investing in deep tech and brand-driven companies. Across the consumer and enterprise spaces. Personally, I've been focusing on the B2B side, so the deep tech enterprise software and fintech companies, and working with the amazing founders like Maija from Onego.
Yes, hi everyone, great to be here. My name is Maija Itkonen. I am an egg farmer. So I'm currently building a gigantic egg farm of 2 million chickens. More precisely, I only have 7 chickens, so these are gigantic bioreactors where we are building and brewing this egg protein with precision fermentation. So this is a new technology for making animal proteins. My company's background is at VTT. So VTT is a research center in Finland. And this technology has been studied there for quite some time. So already since 1980s, this technology has its roots in. But yes, just last year we made this spin-off to precisely license this egg protein technology, and then Onego was founded based on that.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we totally forgot to answer your question about why these type of companies are needed. So I think really the main reason is that all the world's biggest problems, like in the climate change and also in the health and so on, those can't be changed without this frontier research and research-based companies. I have seen like many VCs who are investing in the climate tech, but are doing only like software investments, and I feel that that's not enough. Definitely, we need other type of companies as well.
And if you look at it from the other side, then at the same time, huge resources have already been put into this research and great results, most likely. Yeah. So it also is quite a waste of resources if we don't commercialize those. So there are already tons of solutions for these biggest problems, but many of them are just lying at the university corridor. So it's not going anywhere if entrepreneurs are not taking them.
Yeah, which actually leads us to the next question, which is like something happens in the lab, right? You created some amazing IP, and then how do you actually explore the commercial potential of it? How do you understand that you can sell it, that it has something that you can build a company around? Where does it come from, this understanding?
Well, maybe I can answer partially at least to that question, because at ET Food, I mean, we and not only in ET Food, because we have 8 other kind of kicks where similar, let's say, a problem is addressed, and basically we do propose to our partners that are often universities and research centers and industry to kind of like come together around these problems, so that basically the university, let's say, findings and inventions and seed for innovation can be addressed directly with the industry, or at least with the, work with the startups, so that there's a resonance right away. Of course, in some cases, it does need some training. So we do provide as well training programs, even for science part, to kind of like see that, okay, well, if you are a scientist, would you also see your world as an entrepreneur? And how, or at least how these two worlds can be actually seen together. And well, looking at Maija, I mean, there's probably one example there, but indeed, so this kind of like a permanent, let's say, training and obviously changing the mindset, I think is also very important. I think with the younger generation as well, probably this is already happening. So, how do you picture the future as a scientist? How do you picture the future as someone who is at the same time capable to bring in new, more than ideas even, and then to take it forward? But then obviously often this kind of entrepreneurial side does require, let's say, a little bit different competencies, and therefore we try to actually find ways to match them and make sure that these people, first of all, talk to one another, and then equally to see the opportunities there. So it's kind of a rather long-term as well target, but we can do also something rather quickly with the programs that actually attract at the same time the scientists and entrepreneurs to do something together.
Yeah, then it's also a good point that, like what actually is an entrepreneur. So you can have so many different kinds of roles in there. Not everybody needs to be only having this like business mindset. So that's of course needed, but then at the same time, there's like a big need for this kind of like visionary conceptualizing skills. That, for example, in my case, this was actually a big surprise even for me that, when they requested me that if I would be interested in taking this spin-off case from this institute, I actually soon realized that I had to sell it basically back to them. So I had to do this conceptualizing work and kind of like crystallizing the values and what is it actually about, and really like the sense-making in a way behind it, that where the market could be and why and where is the world going and what kind of products could be involved. So it's not only like just thinking about that here is a great technology and here is already a great business. So there's like lots of these like intermediate stages.
Yeah, I think the most essential step from the research to business is the kind of understanding the actual customer problem and customer needs, because too often when you're doing the fundamental research, you end up to a situation where you have some great technology which is looking for customer problems and so on. So you don't actually know where you should go and what of customers or what is actually even the problem that you're solving with the technology. So when you have like that's something very important, that before like spinning off the technology, you need to build the customer understanding and really the use case for the technology. What is the first application where you want to use it?
And maybe it's also like important indeed to have all the key players, rather from the beginning, like investors, like indeed, like the kind of a, let's say, a platform in a way where obviously understanding customer needs is key, but equally, you know, when you are building a company, when you are building, let's say, your business case, you also need to have not only indeed the entrepreneur side, but also understanding that, okay, how far do I want to go? What is the vision that I have for things that I do? And then also the funding part. And obviously investors' role there is key. And when I've been listening to some of the other panels as well, that we see that maybe the role on investors as well is kind of like maybe a little bit shifting, and looking at more in depth as well, that, you know, what is actually their role and how to deepen their role in a way in this journey, not only providing just the money, but also like pushing probably in these kind of situations that you know, the vision is clear, and therefore there's some potential there.
Yeah, but like before even the company is established, right, the technology needs to mature, right? So it's very risky. Like usually it takes like 10 years to actually build the technology, right? And that's even before investors actually get on board. So at the same time, you need to also test the waters with the customers. So how much time should it take before you actually form a company as a spin-out?
Yeah, maybe I can start with that. So I have like first-hand experiences because this is my third company. I'm a third-time founder already, and I have already built and exited 2 tech companies before this, and each of them have been a little bit different. So with the first one, it kind of like started a lot with the founder vision and the kind of like market need. But then I started gathering this technology around it and kind of like, okay, well, how to solve it, and so on and so on. And then the second one, yes, also like very like a very strong founder vision. At the same time, it was also based on a co-founder PhD studies. So that was kind of like a little bit closer to that already. And now this third one is like ultimately something that is purely from the university, from the research institute, and then the kind of like vision is basically coming like a little bit later to the game. So these are all like slightly different models, and everything is possible. But I have to say that the more complex your case really is, and the more resources your technology development really needs, it totally makes sense to spend quite a long time at the university or institute. Because if you just take it too fast and you just try to really, you're like too eager already in that stage, and you're not ready to commercialize something, it might just be that you're suddenly just, you know, losing the resources that kind of like could have been there. And sometimes this development just takes more time. That it's not only that, okay, we just do the development and then it's done, but it's more, sometimes it takes time in the beginning, and it's the freedom of thinking and the creativity of the researcher and so on. So quite many cases it actually makes sense to spend few years at the university and institute.
Yeah, Paavo, if you look at your cases, like your portfolio companies, so how long actually the technology was marinated in the research institutions before you actually thought, like, okay, now we can work with you?
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely there needs to be this background IP that has been developed there. Like in Onego's case, also there was like even decades of research around the topic, and I think like really the one key aspect here is that like how many different dimensions you are taking risk at the same time. Like if you want to change the customer behavior at the same time when you're doing like totally groundbreaking technology, and you're developing some like and you need like totally new kind of equipment for the case and so on. So if everything is totally new, then it's like a pretty certain that it won't work. But like in Onego's case, for example, it's great that it's really bioidentical acquired protein, so it's similar as the current ones, and also leveraging like existing technologies in the production. So like many of the risks have been mitigated already earlier, and then it's easier to take the remaining risks and start moving towards the commercialization.
Yeah. By the way, like what kind of facilities do you use to make the production? So is it something which is publicly funded? Like where do you make the production?
Sorry, can you ask again the question?
Yeah. So where do you produce your products? So what kind of facilities do you use for that?
Yeah, no, I mean, we are currently in the demo scale, so we have been producing like with the partners premises, so we have a few different partners, but we also continued working also with the institute, so we didn't really cut the cord from the day one, so we have been keeping the relationship, so that's of course very important to really have access to the facilities, but now we're also like building our own facilities, so that's of course very, very helpful. So the further you go, the more important it is that you are like quite independent, that you can work really, really fast.
That's something that we see a lot at Tampere University, because like they can't cut the code just yet because they need the facilities, they need the lab.
Especially in the biotech, I mean, this is really like a burning problem that you can't very easily even test your ideas. But just commenting on what Paavo said, I actually think that, this is something that we should think a lot more, that is there something that is existing and already mature as technology, or is there another like existing product that is already known and proven, and we just make it in another way, or even a combination of those two, that we have a known method and we have a known product, but the combination is just new. It's like too often we are tempted to just think that, okay, I need to build my own completely new process and completely new product, and then you just use so much time for educating and like trying to find resources, when you could just take things like for granted that it's already there.
Yeah, we have also like another portfolio company in the food tech space, Volare, which is like upcycling food waste back to proteins, lipids, and fertilizers. And their design principle has all the time being that leveraging as many existing technologies as possible in the process, because that's just making things so much easier. Like when you start to ramp up the process, then there's less things that are likely to break up.
Yeah, they sound like a very practical, indeed practical advice there, and I think this is equally needed. Obviously, there's not one solution that fits all, but I think this advice is really good. I do also think that when we talk about, let's say, research results going further, it's really important indeed to keep the connection, at least on the IP, not only, but also to the teams that have been developing things, because if indeed we go too fast forward, there is some essential things that can be actually really cut, and there's probably not a one proposal there that is actually the best, but go kind of like at the same time slow and quick. I think that is probably the way forward. In terms of facilities, I think this is though a key question in a way that there is access for facilities. When you think about that, okay, well, how do you, it could be that a university or, for example, a research center it's not possible to actually provide you access for their facilities on a longer term. So how can we improve maybe this area, that there is access for some open facilities is I think a key question when we develop, especially on the food tech area. Sometimes maybe we are researchers and innovators, they are very lucky to have this access, but I think that this question probably is not addressed in a way. I know in Denmark they have kind of a test kitchens that are, test kitchens not like but with a very high technology level, where actually at the entrepreneur phase, you can actually have access to that one. But it is a question that I think should be somehow also addressed, indeed.
Yeah, and definitely will have impact on acceleration of the process of companies growing up. But like when we kind of looked at the labs, what's happening there, right? So okay, we believe we built some kind of IP. How do we establish the company now? That sometimes this process to spin out from the university research organizations can be painful, takes a lot of time. How do you survive during this time? What to look into? Who should be on the founding team? What should be the founding composition? Let's look at these practicalities. So you take the leap of faith. You want to form a company. How do you do it?
Yeah, one thing that is very important is always to think about that. Don't just pick people who are like yourself. If you have people who are exactly the same kind and like from the same background, you're most likely going wrong already. So you would need to have like people from different professions, different cultures, like different backgrounds. That's really like one of the key things. So this is also something that luckily the investors are requiring very heavily. So that is also helping a lot, because I think that otherwise, it would be very tempting to just take your research team and think about, okay, who is going to be the CEO, and that's the only decision that you make.
Yeah, I think definitely like in the research-based companies, common challenge is that they are lacking like the commercial skills from the team, and then it's really hard to invest in the team. Or then another problem can be that they have a hired a CEO which is not that great or doesn't have like the right skills. It's very hard for the researchers also to like judge that, okay, what is the level needed and so on, and then things can go horribly wrong already in the beginning if you hire like a wrong type of person for the commercial role.
I don't know if I'm going too fast with this one notion here, which is also the environment that obviously we operate, and especially when we talk about like a new tech and food tech in the areas which is maybe a little bit novel foods, and so that as well can be obviously a rather huge, let's say, barrier. So the barriers can be different. I mean, it can be indeed the environment, but it can be also on a higher level, like European, let's say, novel foods questions and barriers on the regulation, barriers on indeed like putting forward and pushing forward new tech, like Cell Ag is, for example, one of those areas. But but that's maybe a little bit higher level. But yeah, indeed, I think it is an important factor to take into account, especially on the research-based projects that are pushed forward towards innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, if I may just comment one thing, because this is clearly, I mean, this is the most burning issue here in Europe. That these regulations are really like hindering the bioprocess development, and it is really making it very difficult. If you think about that, you can always say like, oh, we just design marvelous things and we have fantastic research here, and then the business is going to be elsewhere. Like, who wants to finance something like that? If you know that this research is happening in here, but somebody else will get all the jobs and all the tax money from the revenues and so on. So I mean, that clearly I would say that is really like the biggest problem. And it actually comes even to the earlier stages to say, for example, the demo production. So you even can't necessarily do even the demo production here in Europe, because if you can't sell in here, then it also means that you can't easily even import it to another country where it could be sold. Yeah. So it's like we are just kind of like a little bit put ourselves in a trap in here, that in order to boost the research, you would really boost actually the business abilities.
Yeah, and I think this is just the one adding here is that in this kind of like, because this is part of the kind of like the success that comes, if you are a founder, if you are pushing your ideas forward and you want to commercialize things, and this is about innovation. So actually the ecosystem as a whole should evolve as well. And it's not to say that, and especially when we talk about food and food security, obviously it is really important. And I think Maija also agrees on that one. But then indeed, in really new food tech, for example, if we cut the possibilities for the success and for the commercialization, like as in our, let's say, fantastic Europe, then no. I mean, then obviously these entrepreneurs, they will go elsewhere, and obviously we don't want these kind of like results of the European research to go to America or go to Singapore. Exactly. And so in ET Food, we established a kind of a think and do tank, especially on this protein diversification question. And two things that we are particularly looking at is that how we can help to lift those barriers, and especially on regulatory areas. I mean, we're not looking for a revolution, but at least having a dialogue that is at the same time bringing these aspects in front. And then also from the ecosystem part is that there's not one solution that is going to help us in this sustainability issue as a whole, but it's probably multiple solutions. But I think this is a key as an entrepreneur and as a founder. I mean, if the picture is really, let's say dark, or then, why to do it, and why to do it in Europe? I mean, then maybe you will do it elsewhere, and that's a bad thing.
Maybe I can just very, very briefly explain to the audience. So in European Union, we have a very strict regulation for this. So it's been originally designed so that you cannot get the GMO ingredients or some strange Chinese fake foods or something like that to Europe market. So that was like good intention. But it has now gone to the like a little bit too far, so that it currently so that if you want to have a novel food in European Union, it takes about 4 to 5 years to get the approval in here. Whereas to say, for example, in the US and in some Asian countries, it takes like 9 to 12 months. So the process needs to be strict, but it doesn't need to be that long.
And another pain point that Europe is notorious for is the equity taken by the university. Do you consider it an issue, so that there is a large chunk of equity taken from founders from their early stage? How do you see it as an investor? How do you see it as a founder?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think there's a lot of variation between the universities, and now we have seen that some have been like really making clear rules and are sensible there, like demanding less than 10% share of the company, which is then like which makes the companies like investable from the investor point of view. But then there are still like these like universities which are like trying to take something like ridiculous 25% from the company, and it's gonna make the entrepreneur's life very difficult.
I even heard somewhere, it was not from Finland, but I heard from somewhere like 40% was given to the university from the beginning, but it's not possible to build a company from that. Yeah. So if you're considering something like that, make sure that you negotiate very hard, and something like 10% is a good number still. But I think that the relevant question for the lawyers of the university or the institute is that, do you want me to build a business or not? So it's not possible to build a business if the conditions already from the beginning are that bad. And at the same time, I mean, everybody's going to benefit of a very successful case. It's not more kind of like that, let's have a non-successful case and we have a very high chunk of that, so that's equal to zero.
Okay, but like if you look at cap table in general, right? So how should your cap table look for the first couple of years? Let's say, who should you get on board with your company? What kind of investors? Because some investors, they jump quite late on the train when there is already some traction, right? So how do you survive the first 2 years, basically?
Yeah, my advice would be just to try to keep it as clean as possible. So don't take like 1,000 euro from your neighbor and 2,000 euro from your uncle. So try to avoid that type of situations. So as much as possible, try to keep it like very professional and very clean. So even then just delay the founding of the company. That is also possible. There are all kinds of funding instruments that you can get, like so that you don't necessarily need to have the company. You can operate as the incorporation pending type of company, and then you can operate these small things with some free money, like some grants, etc. And you can be super creative with the grants. So I remember in my first company, I was like, it was so funny, I was just looking like, what kind of angles can I have? And it's like Women in Tech Association. Yes, that's mine. So I was just applying from everywhere possible. And then, you just get like some grants, and it kind of like helps you forward. And then when you are in the right stage, then you just make sure that you have the right founders. Sometimes it's not so easy either, but you just need to kind of like try as hard as you can to have the right founders, be very, very well, I mean, of course, there are differences, but just try to be like very equal with the founders, not just like having somebody owning 90% and the others owning the rest. Yeah. And then just, like try to negotiate with the investors who are ready to put like a little bit skin in the game, so that you don't need to take like 10 different investors, but just taking few. So those would be my advice. But yes, and then of course, like trying to have as much as possible the non-dilutive funding involved is naturally very good.
From our side, of course, we try to, within EAT Food as well, to have an offering that is addressing, let's say, different stages of companies. I mean, of course, we are not comparing ourselves to a, let's say, A-level or C-level investors, but we have like this kind of a seedbed program where we looking at the ideas that are coming, like that are really early stage, then Food Accelerator Network that is already more, let's say, advanced, and then Rising Food Stars that is more of a, already companies that are further, and therefore we are able to then open the investors also from the industrial sector part, but equally and collaboration possibilities, but equally as well bring in the investors. But I think it's really important as well to have as diverse possibilities as possible. I mean, we are of course providing grants, but also at the same time bringing in investors from private and from public sector.
I guess another important part of work during this stage is to get partners, right? To get first customers. So how do you approach that, and what do you look into partners? Do you look for facilities, right? Do you look for some supply chains? Do you look for market entries? And how to find this partner? Who should help you on this journey? Is it an investor who can bring you potential customers, or EIT Food, or accelerator program? So where should it come from?
Yeah. If I start in there. So I think that you need to always be very critical when you're thinking about the partners. So they should either give you time or money. Everything comes back to the time or money. So thinking about time is that, if you can get something done faster than you would have without them, that's great. And then money can come in many formats. So if somebody can bring you lots of reputation and credibility and better networks, that is equal to money. So try to be very, very careful in there, and especially not giving any fundamental rights to anybody at the early stage.
Yeah, and I think from the partnership side, so the R&D is something where you need to be especially careful about, also the IP side, that you make sure that your company owns all the IP that is generated during the project and so on. So I think there I will pay special attention into.
Yeah, and it's also even so that, even in some cases that, even if it's self-evident, I think it should be always mentioned that, for example, if you're making an agreement that you can borrow some equipment at the university, just make sure that this arrangement doesn't give any IP rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, exactly. I think very, very good point there. And the partnership and different partnerships in different stages is obviously also key. I mean, we hear often stories where, some meeting a appropriate and very, let's say, caring investor is really important. We are, EIT Food is a network, so one of the things what we do is also some kind of a matchmaking. Of course, once again, it's in the frame of our network per se, so it gives some kind of a security. But of course, even there, you need to know people, you need to know organizations, you need to also be able to assess a little bit what is the direction, what is it that you want to go for, and then at the end of the day, it is often about this kind of really good chances that are made to meeting right people at the right time, and I think it's a question of planning, taking your chances, but then equally, obviously, maybe trying to go to the places where you feel somehow insecure environment, so that you are not maybe indeed revealing your great idea or business model too early in the conversations that are then actually coming back to you. So that's maybe my advice there.
Yeah. Yeah, and also one thing is that it's very important to think who gets how close do these partners get to you. So of course not everybody's that close, so you need to keep some secrets and kind of just keep an arm's length distance. But then with the investors, it's just making life so hard if you need to kind of play some theater and kind of have some sort of a double face, with the investors. So it's just consuming so much energy. I heard one entrepreneur once telling me, you shouldn't take investors who know too much, because then you just, then you can't fool them. I was like, that's the worst advice ever. Because, if you need to go that far, you're seriously in trouble. So you really would need to kind of have a clean deck and make sure that you can share also painful things with your investors, because they are really your allies. Of course, you don't want to be just whining and calling them like, oh, like everything is so difficult. But like when you know that they're your supporters, that's really like a way to success.
I guess you have a real life case with Maki.vc because
Maki is great.
Yeah. How many calls did you make to Paavo recently?
Yeah. But yeah, then also on the like commercial side, I think that's something that like is really being careful when selecting the first partners, because some of especially if you're selling to the big corporations, so they can be like really trying to make sure already early on that what is their dedication level to the project, because they have so many things ongoing at the same time. So if they are not like really putting you to the high priority, it can take like a lot of time, and your runway is ending before you get the results out from there. And they can also like in worst case like even directing the R&D to the wrong direction, which is not going to help you to replicate the success in the like other cases.
Yeah, but in general, it's a very long journey, right? Like if you look at deep tech, it takes a lot longer. That's why like you always need to find the right investor with the right life cycle of the fund, right? So that you could match with expectations, and investors wouldn't be too pushy with where is your revenue, right? Where are the 10x's when it is happening. So what's your perspective on this? What are the ways to tackle your runway during the time when pretty much nothing is happening, just the development of the product or exploration or just launch on the markets? So how to handle this time when you still need to keep the company going, right? There's maybe not much marketing that you can do, not much sales. So how to tackle it? Should you invest your time in branding? Should you invest your time in something else? So how to actually prolong this time without burning the money?
Yeah, I mean, like maybe some companies tend to kind of like invest a little bit too much in the branding in the first place, and I would think that that's maybe, if you're like a little bit insecure where you should be going, you kind of like think that, oh, this is so important, I really need to put so much effort on this. But this is maybe something that just kind of like is like sufficient level that should be enough. But I really love this Nordic way of thinking, in a way that you don't need to prove anyone that you have like tens of people working for you and like everything is so shiny. It really matters what you have. So the core really matters most. And that's kind of like, like if you compare us to the Americans. So I think that this is a great strength, that we don't need to kind of like try to show that we have like who has like biggest premises. It's the winner. So in a way, like, yeah, there are many ways of bootstrapping that, of course, like even well-funded companies can be like a little bit bootstrapping, meaning that you're just not like investing in anything that is just shiny and looks great and feels great, but just only things that are really needed.
Yeah, I think the kind of easiest way to burn a lot of money is to invest in sales and marketing like too early when you don't have the product market fit. So I think that's really the crucial point of time, like when you need to be having like a clear product market fit before building the sales and marketing organization.
Yeah, I think that the focus focus is important, even in that runway part, but indeed not to burn the too many miles too fast, but really know that where is it that you want to go. I think one way obviously is also to, if you start having also like too much time, probably then you should be like thinking about that, how come, and kind of a deepen also maybe some areas, I think timing is important. It's important to accelerate, but it's also important to take your time. So that's probably the most difficult thing there. But I see it from Maija, what you said, but also from the reality of the things is that you have also like you need to achieve what you need to achieve by a certain time. But sometimes maybe we put a little bit too much pressure on what we want to achieve too fast, and actually it is good to take some time back, or indeed like talk with the people that are maybe good advice and kind of maybe calm down a little bit, or help you to focus on areas that are maybe a little bit deeper dive in what you are actually currently really doing.
I still have one idea, like trust your own skills, you know, because if you're supposed to have some skills, trust them. Like, for example, in my case, this is a great example. I'm actually an educated designer. So I'm industrial designer by profession, but a long time ago, I haven't been designing anything for a long time. I was just thinking that, you know, like when we were just about to like open the company and publish the funding that we got and everything. So it's like, okay, it needs to look like a company, but I just don't want to spend a penny for a marketing agency to make me a cool brand and like make the website and so on. So I just work on 2 nights for a website that, okay, this is going to be my website now and that's going to be good enough. And by the way, it's great. It's like, okay, I could have just spent like 20,000 euros for somebody to design it for me. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, but I should know how to do that. So why not to do it?
And we are out of time for our panel. Thank you so much for wonderful discussions and hope to see more companies turning from research to business. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.